MXGP 2021 review time, man. Before I say anything else, I just want to say that I play this on the Xbox Series X next gen version, so my experience is probably different from those of you who played on PS4 or Xbox One, maybe even PC. I'm not sure which version you can do on that, but yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because I did play this game on the PS4 about a week ago at my friend's house, and obviously it's a lot more laggy, and the bike just does not want to turn on the old gen console or the old gen version of the game for some reason. So just keep that in mind when watching this video, that my experience is from the next gen version on the Xbox Series X.
I'm on the air, man. I'm on the air.
So I have about 35 hours in game time on MXGP 2021, so I think I have a good feeling about how everything is in the game, especially the physics. It feels like an improved version of MXGP 2020 in pretty much every aspect of the game, especially the on-ground physics in the corners and just how the bike reacts in general. In MXGP 2021, they added a lot more berms in corners that you can just absolutely rail. So instead of just having an inside berm that is the dominant line and a shitty outside berm, now on pretty much all the tracks they have made it so you can choose the inside berm, middle berm, or the outside berm. It's in a few corners on most of the tracks. It makes the game a bit better because you have more line choices to choose from, and I don't know if I said this already, but you can absolutely rail berms in this game like fucking crazy. It basically feels like you're hitting a rut, but it's not, in a sense. In MXGP 2020, you could rail berms okay, but not as good as you can in MXGP 2021. It just feels really nice and satisfying when you get that berm right. Back end feels quite a bit more planted in this year's game, but it still likes to fishtail here and there, which is kind of annoying because these games should not feel like you're riding on ice really at all, except if you're on the rain weather. Hopefully in future games they can fix this feature and just get rid of the fishtail sliding out. When you're going into flat corners, the bike definitely slides around everywhere. You pretty much just have a 50-50 chance of sliding out, falling over, and crashing, or just sliding out and somehow saving it and taking off. So again, the cornering physics, they're pretty amazing, especially the berms, but not so much the flat corners. Overall, an improvement over the last year's game.
Nice.
I don't really have too much to say about the whips and scrubs because they're pretty much identical to MXGP 2020, so if you played that game, you know how they're gonna feel. Me personally, I'm kind of an oddball out with the whips. I actually enjoy the whips in this game. I think they feel pretty good, and I think they look pretty good as well. Yes, there could be a little bit of an improvement, but regardless, I still enjoy the whips, especially the Oppo whip, because you can't really throw a fat whip like you can in Reflex. It's more so just an Oppo whip. It feels nice and it looks nice. The scrubs are, again, basically identical to last year's game, but for some reason I think they made them a tiny bit worse. They feel pretty similar, but I think it looks a little bit different with the rider position. He often has his head down or just in a weird spot, I think, when you're throwing a scrub, and the bike feels a little bit more heavier when you're throwing a scrub, and usually you don't have enough time to actually throw a perfect scrub, so you kind of just shoot off the track. So the scrubs, not a huge fan of them, but the whips, I like them a lot.
It's the way she goes, buddy. Fucking way she goes.
Track deformation, believe it or not, is actually in MXGP 2021. It wasn't in the game at launch. They added it with their most recent update that came out a couple weeks ago. If you're just watching the video, you might not notice the bike reacting crazy, going over bumps or ruts, stuff like that. But when you're playing the game and you have your vibration turned on your controller, the bike is bouncing around everywhere. You can feel it going over every bump, rut, any sort of track deformation that you go over. You can feel it in the bike, and it really does decrease your lap times as the race goes on. It only takes a couple laps for the track to get really rough, and it doesn't get insanely more rough as the laps go on, but it definitely does get a little bit more rough. Anyways though, you can't really hook into ruts, even though they did add track deformation into the game. It's not like Reflex where you can just absolutely send it into a rut and fly out of it, hook into it no problem. In this game, you kind of just bounce over them all, which is kind of frustrating because you just kind of bounce off the track a lot because you're going over all the ruts and bumps. There is a couple instances where you might actually hook into a rut and it feels pretty nice, but you have to be going very, very slow to actually do that. So the ruts aren't really very good in this game. The track deformation, I think it's okay. I like how it makes the track super rough, but it's more annoying than fun. And the AI definitely cheat on the track deformation. They seem to have no problem with it at all, and they just stick to their same old line. I'm still happy they added it into the game though. It's definitely a step in the right direction, and hopefully as they keep working on it, it can improve over time. Multiplayer, just like any other motocross game that has released in the past, is really fun when it is not lagging everywhere and you're getting blown up by other riders lagging around the track, and when you can actually find lobbies, because on next gen there's usually only 1 or 2 lobbies at all times. Sometimes there's even no lobbies. I'm not too sure how many people are playing this on the old gen consoles or PC, but on next gen there's only like 20-30 people online at the most. Overall though, multiplayer, when it's working properly, it's really fun. You can have some good battles. The collision is not amazing in this game. The riders are often very heavy, but it is an improvement over previous games, I think. You go through selecting the weather, the track, and then your rider. So yeah, multiplayer, it's pretty fun. I often have lag issues with it, mainly because my internet is not the greatest, and obviously these games usually are known for not having the greatest servers or connection. You can ride on custom tracks or the official tracks, and I'm pretty sure you can have up to 16 players now on the next gen consoles. Not too sure about old gen or PC. So anyways, multiplayer, it's a lot of fun, but it has some issues, as it always does. Pretty much the same as it always has been. So if you're a multiplayer guy and you like to race online, you might enjoy this game.
What the hell is even that?
The Compound in MXGP 2021 might be their best to date, which is kind of funny because the Compound in MXGP 2020 was probably their worst to date. So in 1 year they went from having the worst compound to one of their best compounds. You can just tell they tried a lot more harder with the compound in this game. You can make your own waypoint race if that's something you're into. They've had that in for the last few games, I think, and it's in MXGP 2021 again, which is very cool. It's not something I will mess around with a bunch, but again, it's just something that adds more replay value to the game and just makes the longevity of the game a bit longer. They also added in a fast travel feature if you just load up your map, which I don't think they have ever added into their compounds if I'm not mistaken. And this is a feature that has just really been needed, and I'm really happy that they have finally put it into their game. There's 3 tracks again, like there usually is on all of the previous compounds. I wouldn't say they were spectacular tracks, but compared to last year's game, they're a much greater improvement. They actually have big jumps, different sections. It's not just a left right turning track. Different options, and the flow on them is not that bad actually. I don't think they're perfect or amazing tracks, but they're okay. They added in a few enduro spots on the compound, little obstacles like tires, logs, some ramps. Just a few things like that make the compound much more enjoyable, especially for certain people that enjoy that stuff a lot. They also added in like a free ride kind of landscape area, and you can definitely find some big senders in that area. They also added in like a castle you can explore, which is pretty cool for a little bit. But my favorite part of the whole compound is probably all of the trails they added around the map. There's kind of a foresty area, and there's a few different trails in there you can explore, ride around on. These trails are just so much better than the ones in previous Milestone games. They're a lot more tighter. It actually feels like you're in the woods, and there's lots of them as well. I was really expecting to hate on this compound like crazy because of last year's game, but I was definitely proven wrong by Milestone this time because, like I said again, the compound, it's really fun. It's got a lot of stuff to it, and it's definitely one of their best to date. So hopefully that means there's more good things to come in the future with these compounds. Track editor in MXGP 2021 is identical to last year's game, so if you enjoyed the track editor in MXGP 2020, you are gonna like it in this game. The only difference is they added a desert map, and it's not the same one from MXGP 2019 in case you were wondering. This was added into the game a couple weeks ago. The track editor was pretty buggy at launch, but now it seems like the issues have been fixed, or I've just been super lucky when I was making my track. They didn't add any new obstacles to the track editor, no new turns, jumps, special objects. You can't do a custom start like you can in Supercross. I'm not sure why they limit you to that in these motocross games. You can't make the type of soil you want the rider to be on, whether it's dirt or sand. You can't make your own elevation. You can't flip every single jump around like you could all the way back in Supercross 2, which is still their best track editor to date, and the finish lines are still very poor and you can't really make your own cool finish line jump, so that's pretty disappointing. I wouldn't say the track editor is bad, but I wouldn't say it's spectacular. You can still make some good tracks and have a lot of fun with it, especially on this new desert map they made, because the elevation on this map is pretty ridiculous. Unfortunately, you still cannot set markers when making your track, so if you want to test out a certain section and you want to set a marker at a certain spot of the track, you can't do that, so you'll have to make a U-turn, go all the way back up the section and try it again. Still no markers. It's not a huge thing, but it's still very frustrating to me. I really wish they would allow us to put in pre-made inside berms and middle berms, or even outside berms, but for some reason, they will not let us do that in this game. So yeah, nothing is new to the track editor except the one map they have added. So it is pretty disappointing because it just feels like copy and paste, no innovation at all. Customization is basically identical to last year's game. What's frustrating about the customization in MXGP 2021 is that I don't think they have added one new gear set to the game. They may have added one or two, but I honestly do not know, because that's how little they have added to customization, which is kind of ridiculous that they take a couple of gear sets out and they just kind of don't even add any new ones. They will give us a million hand grips, but they won't add in any new gear sets. They won't give us white Alpine Star boots. They won't give us white Garnet boots. They won't give us a bunch of new graphic kits to choose from. They won't let us make our own graphic kits. They won't let us choose our own number fonts on our bike. They did actually add 2 new number fonts to the numbers on your jersey, which has taken them like 10 games to do so. Yes, the number fonts may look kind of cool, but I mean, come on, you gotta add more number fonts than just 5 or 6. You gotta let us make our own number fonts. There's still a glitch in this game where sometimes it lets you make your number super big, and then other times, which is most of the time, it doesn't let you make your number big at all. It's just like glitched out and stuck at the smallest option, which isn't a huge deal, but it's still really annoying. Yes, the customization, it's good, but it's been the exact same for like 10 games now. And it's just really starting to feel like they're not innovating enough at this point. It seems like they just take out a few things with each game and they don't really add anything new. So hopefully in the next game, we can actually get some new gear sets, because it's starting to get pretty pathetic at this point.
Hey, wait up right quick. How tight is that shit? What?
I don't really have too much to say about the career mode in MXGP 2021, and that's mainly for the fact that it is pretty much unchanged to last year's game and really to any of the previous MXGP games that are out there. There's no story, no cutscenes, so it's not really a career mode. It's mainly just you doing races, and yeah, it's pretty much it, because even if you win a championship, the next season you don't come back with the red plate. The 2 new things that they added to career in MXGP 2021 are career challenges, which honestly, they're not really challenges, they're pretty pointless. I think they just get you a little bit of XP. The way you unlock them is by winning a certain amount of Grand Prix, I believe. The time trial ones are pretty much all on Portugal for some reason, and they stick you with a random bike and they want you to beat a certain time. There's a Grand Prix one, and it's a 30-minute moto you have to do, and it's just pretty much a waste of time. So the career challenges, honestly, it's just a little thing that keeps you playing it for, I don't know, another hour, but honestly, you don't need to be doing these because they're pretty pointless. The last new thing that they added to career mode is the rider challenges. Every few rounds, a rider will give you a challenge and he'll be like, hey man, I want to duel. Championship races don't do me justice. And it just picks a random track and you have to do a 3-minute moto against them, a 1v1, which is pretty dumb. It just gets you a little bit of XP and it doesn't really make sense. So you're telling me that Tim Geiser can just kind of be like, hey man, I want a 1v1, and they'll get a whole Grand Prix track set up on, I don't know, Italy or wherever the hell they are, and we just 1v1. It doesn't make sense. You can ride for official teams again in this game, but I do not like the progression system or the contract system on career mode. For example, if I were to win the championship in the MX2 class in my first season, I would not get an offer from a team like Red Bull, KTM, Monster Energy Yamaha, Rockstar Husqvarna, and that's for the fact that I would not be level 40 prestige or something like that. It just doesn't make too much sense. I think for their next games, they gotta go to a system where the better you are riding, the better offers you will get from teams, because again, it just doesn't make sense that I'm winning championships and I'm not getting offers from the best teams. simply because my prestige level is not at the highest it can be. Other than that, career mode offers nothing else. There's no cutscenes, no storyline to it at all, and I'd say it's pretty disappointing, but I don't really think people are expecting anything else with the career mode in this game, so you're really not going to get a full-on story mode probably ever with the motocross games, at least in the near future. It's definitely not going to happen. So that's pretty much all I have to say about my review for MXGP 2021. Me personally, I really enjoy the game. It might be my favorite MXGP game that has released. It's between this one and MXGP 3. I think the most important aspect of these motocross games, or really any game I guess you could say, is the physics, and I think they did do a pretty good job at nailing the physics in this game, or at least improving them from the previous games. They improved the physics, they improved the compound, multiplayer is more or less the same, career more or less the same, but arguably more improved than last year's game because it technically has more content to it. First person is a little bit more improved. You can customize your camera in the game. I completely forgot about that. Bike sounds are more or less the same, but a tiny bit different. Customization is basically the same, no improvements at all there. Track editor is the same, but technically it is improved because it has more content. And before I end this video, I want to remind you guys that I mainly play this game on the Xbox Series X. So for this whole entire review, it's based off my experience from playing it on the next gen version of the game. I did play it at my buddy's a couple weeks ago on the PS4, the old gen version of MXGP 2021, and it felt a lot different, felt a lot more clunky, so just keep that in mind again. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and take care.